and YouTube tonight. That's all we're doing tonight. Facebook and YouTube.
That's fun.
I didn't set up Twitch. As
For
I
our
don't
one
even know
robotic
what's
viewer.
going on Twitch. Yeah, I have no idea. So we're gonna let's see here for our follower comment moderation. I'm gonna say they can only make comments every 10 seconds because that's probably not a problem.
I see us. Hang on.
Yeah, we're looking good. Hey, yeah, take a look at the overlay. So happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas and almost Happy New Year. It's the 30th of December.
We're getting there.
2020, almost to the New Year, so it's pretty exciting. Did you guys have a good Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just chill.
Yeah.
Ate too much, watched some Harry Potters.
Ooh.
Is
That's
that
cool.
are you making that a new tradition, or is that just what you were in the mood for?
It was pretty much every time I went, oh, I should get productive. I went, oh, I'll just keep watching the next Harry Potter that's on.
Yeah.
And that happened for my 3-day weekend.
For a while.
Nice.
And I went, it's Christmas. I really need to just be lazy.
Yeah, you don't need to be
nice.
productive on Christmas. It was a deliberate decision by myself to not be that guy because I always am. And I was like, no, I'm going to take like 4 days and just not do anything. It was great.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Important. Like
Very.
It is needed.
it's hard to justify sometimes, but it's truly one of those like you've gotta reset. My dad used to say a thing: if you go on vacation, it's never a vacation until you stop thinking about work.
Right.
So he would, I mean, not everyone has this ability, excuse me, but if you can get a 2-week vacation, he's like, it would take like 5 days of that 2 week before you stopped. Like, I should check my phone, or what's my email look like, or
Right.
something. So it's like, but under normal circumstances, you get that 5-day point, and you're like, well, now I got to figure out, like, am I traveling back? And it's like, but you get that 2-week block, and you're just like, all right, there's probably a good 5-day chunk where you're just like,
Oh, for sure. Well, and there's also a thing where I really liked, there was a long time ago, I worked in a restaurant in Denver, and the deal was it was closed for 2 weeks during the 4th of July time and for 2 weeks during Christmas, New Year's. So it was cool because it was sort of a built-in time that you knew you were going to be off, you knew you were going to be free. Right now, my business does not isn't quite that. I have clients that require things up to Christmas and then this week as well, which is totally fine. But I'm excited for the time that I can say, cool, there's a 2-week period over Christmas or whatever that just nothing happens. And this is, this is the Christmas break or whatever. I think it'd be a lot of fun to.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because you'll get there. Because for you, the stuff that you produce and the days it gets released never syncs up. So like your Christmas break might actually be like February 12th.
right. Yeah.
Where it's like it all just shifts because that's like the stuff you've made and then produced and then released. And now you've got this quiet window where like it's all just augmented because you're the lead to somebody else's time away.
Exactly.
And then you finally get your time away.
Yeah,
we have the same stuff too. Like we in the casino world, all that stuff. There's year end, there's month end, there's annual, there's stuff that rolls over all the time, and people are like, "Hey, I'm taking 2 weeks off." Like, cool. If I'm not here, the lights go off. So
right.
like I'll talk to you in late January when it's super quiet.
It's true. That's kind of what I want to do though for January. Like I gotta, when you're in a creative field and making things, I feel like occasionally I get into some ruts, and so I think it'd be really fun to take a week in January, grab a cabin in the mountains, take the dogs, and just kind of like disconnect for a second.
Oh yeah.
Recalibrate the creative, brain and stuff like that. Really want to do that, but it's a major blessing that I can't right now just because so much work is there. So it's just, not something I can do at the moment. But yeah, definitely would be living the dream to.
Well, it's like our little Quattro. When Brian,
I know.
I remember during all the stuff, he was just like, "Well, today I might have showered, and these are probably the same pants I wore 3 days ago."
Yeah.
And now he's so slammed with work.
Yeah.
That it's like we
probably
talked about it at the time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, probably the same,
working.
but he's getting paid this time.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
it's that fun blessing of like. And then he was like lamenting it, and now it's like, oh God, I wish I could get a break. Like, no, you gotta have that swing both ways of like. Both situations are a different kind of stressful, but you got to be grateful for the one you're in now, where it's like, I am swamped but I love it.
But
Like,
I love it. Yeah,
it's,
exactly. It's a good feeling. I like being busy. It's a great thing. Very excited about tonight's episode for a few reasons. Number one, I just miss you guys. It's we've been kind of off and on during the old holidays, so I miss talking to you guys. And usually, I mean, at least back in the day, and we would kind of see each other sometimes around the holidays because everybody would get together for the holidays, and maybe we'd all be in Fort Morgan or whatever else. But that's not happening, obviously, this year. But second of all, I love end of the year all the things. I love like the year in review stuff. I love the Graham Norton show's New Year's Eve show. I love podcasts that are, the best of 2020 or whatever it is. So that's why I'm excited about this episode, because we almost did an entire year of podcasts. We started, sort of like early in the year, right around when
I think we were like
coronavirus
four
was first.
episodes in, and we were just talking about like, there's this thing overseas. We're gonna be home. It'll be like a month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it was February.
They
March.
never make it to the United States.
Yeah.
These viruses. We're fine.
It was in episode 3 or 4, or maybe earlier even, where you had said something, or I had said something about, well, if we got to be inside for 2 weeks, no big deal, So, and then here we are, probably wearing masks at least until June or something. So, or longer. So it's an interesting thing, but it reinvigorated the Smoking Hot Nerds. Now we've got, this is, well, in total, probably 40 to 45 episodes, give or take, this year. So almost one a week. Not too bad.
That's pretty
not
great.
Too shabby. Yeah, definitely. But 2020 was an interesting year. However, it was interesting because not a lot came out, but some things did. A lot more TV than movies, notably, anyways.
Yes.
So we thought it would be a lot of fun tonight to go through our favorites, our least favorites, and our biggest surprise. Now, when I compiled the list, so Brian won't be with us tonight, but so this is basically the 3 of our list. There was only one thing that was a unanimous vote. We had one that was nearly unanimous, and then the rest are a smattering.
Sure.
So I thought it'd be a lot of fun to start with.
That I can guess.
Yeah, to start with the unanimous vote. And that is the worst show of 2020. And the worst show was, drumroll please, Space Force. A unanimous garbage fire that is, up to par with the garbage fire of the political year. So
and we'll throw an asterisk on here just for statistics that this stuff includes things, only the stuff that we saw. So we're not going to make assumptions about stuff we didn't watch at all, like the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We're not going to go into that. This is only a list compiled of things that we saw. So it may not line up with your own personal stuff, but this is where we're.
And that said,
that's my asterisk.
It is a double asterisk here will be that most of this is stuff that came out in 2020, but we did open the door to things that we saw this year for the first time. It may be something old, because 2020 was not a great year for releases. So we opened the door to a lot of other things. So
or had seen before but revisited.
Right, exactly. Revisited hard. The things we enjoyed. It was really more about our favorites, not necessarily the best, but we'll call it the best and worst. So, Eric, you texted me first, and Space Force was the least favorite show of the year. Tell us why.
Space Force, for me, and probably a lot of people that were very disappointed, I was disappointed because there was hype that was probably self-imposed, saying, "Oh, it's the Office people, it's Steve Carell, it's his next kind of big project, back to TV format." And the idea of, okay, Space Force, here we go, and they're going to throw some money at this thing. And so it's like, ooh, this could be great. And then it just pooped its pants. Not completely, but there's a lot of poop on most of the walls.
It was leaking through the diaper for sure. It was one of those all the way up the back type of.
It was the what's the picture of how people use? Someone drew a diagram of how people use public bathrooms, and the guy's just standing on top of like the,
on
the upper deck or whatever, and just like turned around facing the wall and just crapping on the floor.
Well, it's or some like the baby pictures that people take with dad's got his shirt off and he's holding his newborn baby, like those kinds of portraits. But there's plenty of them out there where you look like, oh, this is going to be great, it's going to be so cute, and then the baby takes a giant dump on dad's back. So that's what Space Force was in a lot of ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because it had so much potential, because it was relevant, because the United States was forming an official Space Force. It had all of these things that could have been wonderful satire, but it missed so many comedic marks, most of which were that there wasn't a straight man to be found in the entire thing.
Or a consistent straight man.
Yeah, like, everybody was an idiot.
Malkovich, I guess, but I don't know that he was the right one. Mm-hmm. Like, there needed to be another straight man. Like, Steve Carell maybe needed to be the straight man.
Yeah.
I think in that.
Yeah, there was really nobody for the audience to commiserate with or to be, what's going on here? There just didn't exist, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, it was almost like it fell into the issue of, we know that TV shows they have a writer, but there's usually a writer's room where somebody is the lead on an episode, has support, but you're gonna have, like, if you have 10 episodes, you're gonna have 10 leads, may not be the same one every time. They're gonna cycle it around. It's almost like this suffered from social distancing before that was a thing, where they were given an outline and said go, but they never were in that room to make sure it all synced up.
Yeah.
So that, like, the tone was it's like everyone got their voice in, but it was not the same voice end to end.
Right.
And I think we talked about it. When we reviewed it, when we talked about it, the thing that we said, the fact that we could rewrite the entire show in a 1 hour podcast,
and we did,
it was evidence enough that somebody didn't do the due diligence on it. And you're right. So, like, in one episode, Carell is just no jokes, straightforward, and then in the next one he's singing Kokomo, and then, like, in another one he's the bumbling Inspector Gadget idiot type, and then in the next one he's this aloof hot mess. It's just like there was no consistency. The only thing that was consistent really was, like, the Ben Schwartz PR person and the 4-star administrative assistant general. And that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it was such a good idea. It had so much amazing room that it's almost like it was a rudderless ship where nobody just, like, said, okay, I'm going to step back, make sure that this whole thing lines up. I trust each and every one of you. You're all great, but I need to step back and make sure we're all in a straight line here. Nobody did that. Like, nobody took that role, or somebody did. It just wasn't very good at it.
I think, and it seemed like their way into it initially from the get-go just was not the right. Like, the first things that were pencil to paper just weren't the best. And I don't know if they were just, like, it got greenlit and they just ran with it and got money thrown at it and
they're like, oh no,
scripts. And so I think, to your point, is it maybe was just mega rushed. And like, they needed to step back, way back, even before scripts were written, and go, maybe this, like, who is this character? Who's Steve Carell playing? How is that going to fit? It's like, what are we saying about the military? What do we want to say about science? What do we want to say about the politics? And the whole thing just ended up being kind of muddled.
And then there was the massively disappointing, and I don't know even how to phrase it, because Hollywood is not, in general, homophobic or anything like that, but the whole sequence of John Malkovich being outed as gay was so painful and so homophobic and so just disappointing, to the point where it was just, they'd already lost me, but at that point I was mad. That was when I had the first thought where I was just like, this show these guys should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, it was like 80s movie bully type stuff.
Exactly. It was so
where they just kept pushing him in the locker and kicking him the kick me sign.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to. Yeah, and it was like a moment of character development for him, where you're like, oh, okay, they're making Malkovich's character more complex, but the instrument to do that was like, okay. trying to play into the awkward, humor type
But
of thing
just
of like, oops.
it just did not work at all.
Pretty
Space
much,
Force,
yeah.
1 out of 5.
Right?
Yeah.
Zero
Well, guess
out
what?
of 5.
I read it's having a second season.
Ugh,
So,
poorly placed funds.
Well,
but they are
Netflix.
bringing in like a different showrunner or something. I think there is a major change, maybe.
They should just rewrite the
So,
first season.
I know it's like maybe he'll wake up and go, "Whoa, well, I had a terrible dream.
What a
Okay,
dream."
time to go to my first day at work."
Yeah, exactly. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so
what I would
Space
do.
Force unanimous decision on the worst show of 2020. So I thought, why don't we bounce back into something positive?
Yeah.
And let's talk about our biggest surprise of 2020. And Nico, you go first. Your biggest surprise of 2020.
I don't remember what I said.
Schitt's Creek.
I had to look up my text.
Right. Schitt's Creek was your choice.
Oh yeah, Schitt's Creek. Oh man, it wasn't on the radar because it's a Canadian broadcasting show. And then I think what had happened, is that right English? Yeah, who knows? Proper English. I think the reason I'm such a late player to the game is A, because of the schedule is not a standard schedule. B, it was on a weird network time, et cetera. And then I think when I saw the trailer for it, the name was obviously super funny. And then Eugene Levy and stuff. I'm like, oh, Catherine O'Hara. Okay, this is great. And then when I missed the start of it, then there was like no news about it. Like nothing really came out about it until season 2 came around. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, because I think the other part of it too is like my friend circle or whatever also was kind of like, I don't know if it's for me or not. So it's just like, I'll wait.
It's hard to invest in another half-hour comedy. You just don't know if you want to do that.
I like
because there's
Creeks,
so many.
and I like the Shits, but do I like them together?
And then
do I want them together?
I think what it finally was when I saw an ad, I think it was Netflix or something, where they basically said like, we've now got all season streaming or something like that. And I was like, oh, and then obviously pandemic was like, well, I have free time. So, and then I watched it and oh man, I'm not mad that I was late to it. I would be mad at myself if I was like meme late, like started posting Schitt's Creek memes from season 1 when they're in season 6,
right,
kind of thing. But it's so well written and so good. And I think I talked about it when we were talking about it earlier too, is that there's a certain point in each episode or in the season where they are not laughing scripted. They are honestly laughing at something, but it's so genuine to the characters that they didn't cut. They just kept it in. And it's like, this is great. This is so good. Cause you know that that means that they're such good actors and the script is so good that they're on the verge of knocking each other out all the time. And then occasionally it actually happens, but it fits and it's perfect. So they just leave it in because it's like the most natural bust up without ruining the scene. And it happens every episode or every other episode. And it's really good. It's so good. And it's so like, there's no overly political message. There's no like beat you over the head message of like, be good to other people or don't treat people certain, like there's none of that kind of stuff. It's just these people that are in a crap situation and they're doing what they can do, but they're surrounded by not perfect situations and they just power through it and stick together. But the characters remain true to the designs of their characters. So that like, Alexis is super aloof and the mom is this not a dried up, washed up actress, but definitely in like that 80s genre where like doesn't necessarily fit like the 2000s genre type actress, but plays it perfectly. Just convinced that her break is coming. She's gonna get back in, but then has like her speech is so wonky. Like the way that she over enunciates certain things.
Catherine O'Hara, man,
it kept it.
She's
and it's
so great.
so good. Yeah, that's why it was a surprise that I did not think the show was for me, just in content or whatever, and I was shocked that I love it.
Nice. May have to check it out. I have not watched. Well, I watched the first episode and it didn't hook me.
That too. I think it might have been when I first watched it too. Like I might have watched the pilot or whatever, and was just like, this is gonna be this really bad, like, oh, these poor people are stuck in a hotel.
Right.
Blah. I thought it was like, I don't know. I think that might have been actually what it was. That I was just like, this isn't for me.
Yeah, watching sad poor people,
Yeah.
or sad rich people. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean, obviously Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara are just like brilliant comedic minds, and they've always been super. I love them in everything, related to Christopher Guest. But I heard Dan Levy on is it Dan Levy, his
Daniel?
son?
Yeah.
His on a podcast. I think it was David Tennant's podcast, and it was great. And he had the right. See, going back to Space Force, he had the right idea about comedy. Is the joke's always on the person telling the joke, or the joke's always on the person saying the racist thing, the homophobic thing, the whatever else thing. Like, if the joke is that, it's on the person saying it, and that's where Space Force failed. The joke was almost always on the thing they were making fun of, which is just not comedy. So I respected him for that, and I really liked him for that, and I think that's a good reason to watch the show, is just because I liked his
100%.
perspective on it. So. Eric, your biggest surprise of 2020 was?
As I typed to you, how much I enjoyed Battlefield Earth.
It was your first viewing of it when you watched
another podcast. Yeah, it was brought up that movie, and I went, you know what? I've kind of always wanted to see this movie, so let's do it. And oh boy, it didn't disappoint at all.
Yeah.
It was solid in the way that I like hot garbage.
Yeah. What year is Battlefield Earth? Mid-90s?
2001?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's right on the cusp. Yeah.
Somewhere in that garbage era.
I'm trying to think of when I saw it. It would have been, college, I think.
What did you like about it? Or what surprised you about it that you were like, oh, I kind of like this?
Well, because it's been touted as one of the worst movies ever.
Right.
People are just like, it's awful, blah, 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 which piqued my interest. Just like this new Wonder Woman, the more people are complaining, the more I'm like, maybe I do want to watch this.
Yeah, we'll circle around to that, that's for sure.
Yeah, because I've learned by now, I am contrarian.
Right.
That's just what I am. Especially about movies and TV, things like that. And I like if someone's like, hey, here's an Oscar bait movie, I'll go, nah, I'm not interested. But it's really important, Eric, I'll go, yeah, I'm good.
You have to watch Little
Women.
Women.
And if someone's like, God, this movie over here was the worst piece of hot trash ever, I'll go, oh, what was it called? And I'll go seek it out and I'll watch it. And I'll enjoy it probably. And this one was like, it's like you take a kooky religion and mix sci-fi, which is what L. Ron Hubbard did, and then like throw way more money at it than it should get. And so it's kind of a weird, quote unquote, it's trying to be a blockbuster. And it's essentially like there's a future where aliens invade Earth and humans, which pretty much it's all white people. That's, I think, the only humans you see. They pretty much become like Native Americans. They're all dressed like Cherokee and crap and like live in teepees and caves.
Yeah,
they devolve really
and
fast.
So you're like, oh, okay, so it's this. This is a futuristic story about white people being oppressed. Okay, so that's already hilarious.
I'm so
yeah, and then the aliens are essentially these like dimwit. It's like a Klingon office comedy where Klingons are trying to like get leverage on each other, screw each other over, and they're just all idiots, and they think humans are just the lowest and really dumb. They call them. Yeah, what do they call them? They have a name for humans. And John Travolta's there.
Right.
And there's no way he took it seriously. Like, he is enjoying it. He's hamming it up. And Forrest Whitaker's in it. He plays his, like, half-wit underling.
The assistant to the regional manager.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like the clerk. He's a lonely clerk, he's called. That's why I love these aliens, like, talk just the silliest, like, American lingo.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
It's phenomenal.
That's amazing.
And you nailed it.
Barry Pepper is in it too.
Barry Pepper is the human.
Yeah, that is a rough year, man. 2001, because you got guys like Forrest Whitaker just coming up, or at least coming into the view of the public. You got guys like Travolta and Nick Cage, and those guys just going bonkers on screen. Like they're just doing whatever they want to do. Because like Face Off, that was around that time, right? So things like that were happening. And so, yeah, that's a crazy time to have a movie like that. And that was when guys were making movies that were about their religions. Like there was, what was the other Travolta movie, Phenomenon or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was K-Pax and things like that, where it was sort of like they were making movies about their beliefs in Scientology or, you know, the elevation of the human, you know, mind. So it was because there's too much money. There's way too much money floating around then. They were just making movies for whatever reason.
And you're right. You nailed it. Whoever sold that movie to somebody said, this is going to be, it's on the level of Star Trek, Star Wars, etc. This is gonna, and like the production quality of Battlefield is so much better than like a B movie. Like the full makeup, the sets, the prosthetics, they had visual effects, they had huge location-based scenes. They did all, like, there's a lot of stuff in the production design.
Yeah.
And then you get this script in there, and you're just like, what the world?
Well, you know that it was that though. It was like The Postman or Waterworld or whatever. It was like, it was Travolta was driving it, and he was just like, "Trust me, we're doing this. It's gonna be great." And they're like, "Get it."
And it was awesome.
And scene.
I mean, hot garbage for sure. But oh boy,
but you surprised.
I loved it.
Battlefield Earth.
I watched it, and friends were texting me from my other group, and they're just like, "Oh, wait till you get to this cow scene." There's like a cow scene, and I was like, "They're like, oh, it's crap." Otherwise, I was like, I said some things I won't say here, but I was essentially like, I'm 8 minutes in, and I'm already loving this movie. Like, I was dying laughing already at the beginning. Yeah. I laughed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
What's the last? Oh, like Aquaman. I don't think I've laughed that hard since Aquaman.
Nice.
That's a good one. Yeah, well, Battlefield Earth will be on the list for 2021, which we're going to call 2021. Our first episode, we're going to call it Season 2 of the Smoking Hot Nerds. The Deuces. So for let's just recap. Biggest surprise for Nico. I was just going to go back. Biggest surprise for Nico was Schitt's Creek. Biggest surprise, not new movie, but Battlefield Earth for Eric. And my biggest surprise of 2020, I have two. I won't get crazy. I know they're both shows, but number one was The Queen's Gambit, which was not something that was on my radar at all, except for the fact that it pops up on Netflix's suggested like crazy. I started seeing people talking about it, but I was like, I had the same reaction that everybody else does. Chess? Do I want to watch a show about chess? And the answer is yes.
Yes,
you do want to watch a show about chess, because it's not just about chess. It's about so much more. It's about, loneliness and abandonment and addiction and all kinds of great things. I don't know if I've watched a show in recent memory that every single actor killed it. Like every actor across the board knocked it out of the park. It was just so good. Slow, dry, takes its time. It's a slow build. The first 3 episodes are nothing like each other, so you have to be okay with the fact that you're kind of getting sucked into a world, and you have to take the ride. It's only 8 episodes, or no, 7 episodes, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
But it was great. Really, really surprising, and it takes place in the late 60s, so it's got that cool 60s Mad Men vibe, but a little more international and cool. And then the other big surprise was something that I would never have watched, except it was just one of those nights where I had watched a movie, still was up, didn't know what I should throw on, and I popped on Love on the Spectrum, also on Netflix. And it's a reality show. I shouldn't call it that. It's like let's call it a docu-series about autistic young adults trying to find love, finding their partners. So it's in Australia. A little documentary crew follows around a handful. I think it's like 6 or 8 different autistic people from the ages of 18 to 30 or something like that. and it's just heartwarming and wonderful. And some of them are relatively high functioning on the spectrum, some of them not so much, but they all are just so intensely genuine in the way that they talk and the way that they're searching for love and all this stuff. And if you just don't have anything to watch, if you're just like, I don't know what to watch, there's too many options, but you're in the mood for something real, throw it on. It's amazing. Love on the Spectrum. It was nice. It was great. Yeah. Really, really, really adorable. So
does each episode follow a different person, or do you have like a season long of like 5 or 6 people?
It's like the first 2 episodes split it up between maybe 6 or 8 people. And then each episode subsequently kind of goes back and tags on to each of them. But there's only one season. I don't know if there's another one coming out, but the season ends with everybody just kind of still in the middle of their search. So I'm hoping there's another season. It was just wonderful. Like, you got to watch it. It's great. I mean, if there's nothing on TV, there's no cartoons to watch, like, pop it on. It's pretty cool. But I like real stuff. I like genuine people. Yeah, it's great. Really, really great. So those were our biggest surprises of 2020. Let's go to the category of worst movie of 2020.
Oh, God.
Eric, your choice for worst movie of 2020 was?
Well, we covered it here.
Yes.
Not from this year,
No.
but that movie, Nothing But Trouble.
That's right.
Was just as I'd remember it when I was 9.
Yeah.
And oh boy, what a slog. Not a hot garbage movie that I enjoyed. Yeah. Which is why I was like, you know what? Let me see. Maybe a revisit.
It dipped into the uncanny valley and then nope.
And I literally went, I feel the same as I felt when I was 9. Okay, this movie did not change. Many other things would probably be night and day.
Yeah.
Not this one.
Yeah.
Still confused, still feeling weird.
I get some of those jokes now. I understand them, but why are there 2 fat twin babies? I don't get it.
All right.
Yeah. To the point where, I think on the podcast we're talking, and I was just wondering, like, was Dan Aykroyd trying to kill Chevy Chase's career?
Right.
Was he like, hey,
trying
bud,
to tank
do
him?
this movie? Come on over. Yeah.
It is a surprise that Tupac took off after that, because it could have gone
Digital
south.
Underground,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I heard Dan Aykroyd on Joe Rogan's podcast. He was on somewhat relatively recently. And first of all, Rogan was like high as balls and would not let him get a word in edgewise. But, I mean, Aykroyd's a cuckoo bird. That guy is out there, man. Like, knows everything about
He's a
everything.
Dictionary of
UFO
wackadoodles.
related, abduction related, all that kind of stuff. Like, he knows everything. It's crazy. So you can see his brain's working on a pretty crazy level. So mix in like the 80s and a little cocaine in there, and you get movies like Nothing But Trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get that and drugs and cash.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like written, directed, produced. Like it's all just Aykroyd.
Yeah.
So basically, I had nobody to say no to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to see unfiltered Aykroyd. And you're like, oh boy. Which I think, again, I was like, I really want to read that first draft of Ghostbusters he wrote and see how crazy it was, and see how much Ivan Reitman or I think Harold Ramis came in to help, and how much Ramis happened to know a bunch of the same stuff, but probably had to delicately go, okay,
right.
He's like, that's a great
massage a little bit.
That's a good novel, but that's not going to work cinematically. Write a book with your nutballs.
Maybe we don't go to space.
Yeah, which they did in the original script, right?
I think they go to space.
On the moon
they go
or
to different
something.
dimensions. It's like they pretty much every crazy thing that Marvel Studios did over 10 years. I think he probably had in that script.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Infinity War was the original Ghostbusters script.
Yeah,
well, Nothing But Trouble.
Crazy fat twin babies.
Yeah. Not from 2020, but a movie that we did review in 2020. Therefore, Eric's
It counts.
Least favorite. Nico, your least favorite movie of 2020 was Artemis Fowl.
Oh, it's probably changed.
Artemis
but
Fowl.
It was,
Yes,
it was Artemis
that was
Fowl.
your original choice.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
we can
man.
talk about your other option now if you'd like to.
About Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
She gets the downward W's.
2 downward W's.
So Artemis Fowl originally was my worst because it was Disney Plus's offering of like, hey, we know this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this movie at home on our new platform. It's great. And it had, Judi Dench, and it had all this good stuff in it. And it was touted as kind of, it was directed at a movie that I would want to see. It had a little bit of like a sci-fi fantasy angle, a little caper thief type stuff. It had some fantasy stuff in it with some high name actors. And I'm like, okay, this is going to fall in line with something I definitely want to see. God, it was a garbage. It was just, it's probably one of those things where it's a great novel. Like, I believe it's a novel and it probably reads fantastically, but then to try to translate that stuff into a visual medium just failed. Like, it's there is no such thing as third person omniscient in a movie because you have to follow a lead, and you don't, the third person omniscient is a narrator. This movie didn't have a narrator per se. And it's just like these half-cocked ideas about these two realms that are battling each other. And there's this big bad villain. You're like, great. And then their backstory is like, they were angry. Like, that's not a get out of here. And then, some artifact is obviously stolen. It just, it visually awesome. But then when you wipe away the visuals and like follow the plot end to end, it's like, this is so bad.
Wasn't Colin Farrell in it? Or no?
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
So that was you sent me that prior
original.
to this weekend.
Yeah.
The new title, Wonder Woman 1984. Oh my God.
Now, we've not seen it, and I think that we should maybe think about reviewing this one for season 2. So without spoiling it, tell us what.
Yeah, no. So the reason I don't like it are constructive, not in like I'm going to give constructive feedback, but it's in the construction of the film, in that
it would be women.
It had women. No, 1 second.
2 women leads.
No, I would prior to last Friday, I would have argued that if any franchise is going to take on Marvel, it would be the Wonder Woman franchise.
Right.
Because they did such an amazing job with Wonder Woman 1 of saying, strong, smart, independent, self-sufficient, powerful women getting stuff done. That was the movie. Like, that was it. And it was like, yeah,
and
more
coupled
of
with
this.
World War One, which we hadn't really seen a movie.
Right, which is super stylistic.
Very well.
Right.
Yeah, it's some
It was
really cool
just
stuff.
all around, like, this is so good. And then in this one, they took all of that and just said, no.
Just kidding.
And oh God. So the plot it's so dumb. The plot is so dumb. So we've all seen Aladdin. And in the end, when they trick him, like, I'm going to be the most powerful, he's like, well, you should be a genie. He's like, okay. And then he gets stuck in the lamp. And then you take this super powerful Wonder Woman, which was like an independent, strong woman. And then the whole first half hour, 45 minutes of the movie is her just being mopey, like, oh, I lost Steve. I'll never
Still
love again.
in the 80s?
Yeah, man. She's just like,
That was like happening in the 40s.
Mopey.
No, not even that.
Like,
The 20s.
Teens.
The teens.
Yeah. She's just
war's
mopey
confused.
and like, my life isn't complete without a man. And it's like, this is not Diana Prince. It's so out of character.
Yuck.
And then they try to retcon in a bunch of Wonder Woman abilities. So she learns how to fly in the stupidest way possible. And then, everyone's like,
more.
and then people are probably saying like, well, she had to have an invisible plane, so they work that in there somehow.
Yes.
For no reason.
Yes.
And then,
Just
oh my God, it's just so bad.
Is there an invisible plane, but you see her?
No, it's
You see her just like in the air.
no. The mechanic is kind of how they shrouded the island of Theramaskia. It's the same rule set for that.
Okay.
But God, and it's like
Then birds just smash into her plane incidentally.
right. Well, they fly through fireworks where you're like, all right, one of those definitely hits the airplane, and like it's somebody took the outline of this and that was the script, but they forgot the step of actually going back and flushing out the outline.
They just
Like
shot an
they
outline.
missed all the details. They shot the outline, and then like I said, the whole like character shift of her just being like, I can't do things without a man. Like that's not Wonder Woman. It's so and it's to the point where like it's not a spoiler, but Chris Pine's character comes back.
Yeah, we see him in the trailer.
Does he come back as Chris Pine? No. Oh no.
Yeah, I've heard this one.
He comes back as some other dude where they try to do like the Whoopi Goldberg, Patrick Swayze ghost thing where like you see the guy and then the camera shifts and then it's Chris Pine. Like, and then we're just supposed to believe for the whole rest of the movie that it's Chris Pine the whole time.
Yeah.
Given
it's quantum leap, deal with it.
Yeah, the kicker of the whole plot is that there's a guy who finds a wish stone where you make a wish and it happens. And she just casually says, like, you could tell the wish she makes in her head is, I wish Steve was back. Mm-hmm. Now, this is an all-powerful, God-generated relic item. You would think it would be able to just manifest Chris Pine as Chris Pine and not shove him into some other body, because it does things like, I don't know, turn Kristen Wiig into Cheetar. Like, come on. It's so bad.
I am getting very interested.
You're probably gonna love it. You're gonna love it, but it's
we'll definitely do it. We're doing it for sure.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely. But it's like
right?
It's a long one, and that's the other thing too. It's like you have all that time and you just blow it all the way along. And it falls into its own pitfall so many times, to the point of like the genie thing, where this isn't a spoiler per se, but he starts just granting wishes at will. Just sea of wishes. He's granting them all. It's kind of like the Bruce Almighty thing where he just says yes to all the prayers and then all this mayhem happens. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you can't tell me that
like
there isn't another single
everyone.
Yeah, there isn't another single megalomaniac out there that was like, I want all his powers, which then just disrupts the whole movie. You can't tell me that didn't happen. Like, that's the thing. And the other part that irks me, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, they tried to fix the Captain America problem with shooting it in 1984. Because my argument with the Captain America stuff was when in Captain America Winter Soldier, when S.H.I.E.L.D. goes down, when S.H.I.E.L.D. gets under attack in Civil War or Winter Soldier, one of the two, you know the rest of the Avengers show up. Like Iron Man shows up to help him take down S.H.I.E.L.D. Mm-hmm. So they used 1984 because you couldn't make the argument of like, well, Superman is obviously just like waiting to show up, right? Mm-hmm. So they did in 84 because Superman had, technically, and that's the only reason it's 1984. Mm-hmm. And that's like, you know what?
Well, also, it concerns me. Crap. Yeah, the member berries really concerns me because 84 was not. Movies almost always get the 80s wrong in terms of style. In 1984, the style really looked way more like the 1975, 70s. 76. So it's just not, I just hate it when they do that. So, to tag on to your worst movie of the year being Wonder Woman, 1984. I have two again, but the first one is the first 3 minutes of Wonder Woman, 1984.
That's fair.
Because they released the first 3 minutes before Christmas at some point in time on HBO, and so I'll watch it.
Did you get the honest first 3 minutes where it's her as a little kid having a little?
Yeah.
That's another thing that has no bearing for the entire rest of the movie.
I assumed that it wouldn't. It's just it's such a waste of my brain and my eyeballs to make me watch CG waterfalls and Amazon women running on hamster wheels and them racing each other for no reason. Why are you making me do this? And why did you also employ people to do this? I don't understand what the point was of writing anything along those lines. And then it cuts to, like, at the end of the 3 minutes, it cuts to like just like a little quick like trailer for the movie, like just really quick, and then it's Kristen Wiig being like, "Ooh, like you look good," and I'm just like, why are we still using her in movies? Like, why? It's just
And
frustrating.
She does okay.
And it's
She's
fine, and she is
but
fine.
she's a victim of
But
the plot.
Can we not do 2006 Kristen Wiig stuff anymore?
Oh,
Can we
yeah,
just
yeah.
not? Let's
Right.
let's evolve our comedic style at some point in time to be something other than what made you famous. And so those things just start to frustrate me. My other least favorite movie. Now this isn't the worst movie per se, but it is my least favorite. Maybe let's say most disappointing was Love on the Rocks on Apple TV Plus. It's Sofia Coppola's newest movie with Bill Murray and Rashida Jones. And the thing is, like,
yeah, okay.
dad.
yeah, I really like. Well, I should say I love love actually, not that. I do love that, but Lost in Translation. At least I did. I haven't seen it in a very long time. It was a gateway drug for me in terms of independent film. It felt indie,
for sure, 100%.
Just like seemed like very guerrilla style, one camera, kind of thing. And I loved that movie. But watching Love on the Rocks, which is about 15 years later, probably, maybe more than that. I don't even know. I have to look and see what year Lost in Translation came out, but let's call it 15-ish years. There's been no evolution in Sofia Coppola's filmmaking prowess, in her style, the maturity of her content has stayed extremely juvenile in the sense that, for one, it's just sad rich people is kind of what the movie is about. Bill Murray is this wealthy kind of playboy who's never been their kind of dad. Rashida Jones is his daughter, and she suspects that her husband might be having an affair. So he kind of convinces her to maybe like, let's kind of be like detectives and we'll follow him around and we'll find out if that's really what's happening. And the pacing is horrendous. Bill Murray's fantastic in it. It's all very well acted across the board. I mean, Bill Murray's wonderful in it. He's doing his usual Bill Murray thing. Rashida Jones successfully pulls off like hot ugly girl. Like she wears all the right clothes and bad hair, and so you're just kind of like, okay, I can see like you're not feeling it. But they have this like insanely beautiful apartment in New York City, and she's a writer, and she's just having like writer's block. So by the end of the movie, when things are all resolved and we know what's happening now, there's like this little moment where it's like, and the sun's shining and she's like writing away. Oh man, she's just editing that book that she couldn't write before. And it's such garbage that it surprises me that a person who's made like 8 or 9 films now hasn't changed at all, hasn't figured out how to tell a better story or more mature content or anything along those lines. It's very, very juvenile. Very childish, and it was just a huge disappointment. I would rather watch a movie and go, ugh, I hated it, or wow, I loved it. The worst kind of movie is the one you get to the end and you're just like, yeah, wasted my time, kind of.
Yeah, cool.
Don't love it, don't hate it.
Yeah.
Like, that's credits, neat.
Wasn't bad enough to shut it off, but wasn't good enough to make me go, I'm glad. And it's a bummer because I really love her stuff typically, but yeah, just like, yeah. Because I think that there is something interesting about writing from a place of privilege and just never, ever really being in a place where you kind of ever had to struggle. And so, like, you're trying to tell me a story about, like, a really rich person worrying about her husband having an affair with another really rich, really hot girl. Like, you're going to it's going to be rough getting me to care about that.
Yeah, I mean, it falls into that thing where it's like, I'm not going to be able to relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
So entertain me.
Yeah.
Like if it's either relatable or entertaining.
Yeah.
And since you're not going down the relatable route, you've got to hit the entertainment route.
And Bill Murray's character is kind of a womanizer in a way. Like he kind of hits on all the girls, like all the waitresses and all the things.
Sure.
But see, here's the thing. I'm name dropping my own Bill Murray experience.
Is it very Kaminsky method?
I've waited on Bill Murray myself. That's his personality. He's this incredibly charming, wonderful human that makes you feel like you're the most important person in the whole world. And so in this movie, he kind of does that. Like the girl, one of the waitresses in the scene, he's with Rashida Jones, and he's looking at her, he goes, "You a dancer?" She goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Ballet?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I can tell you're standing in fourth position." And then she's like, "Oh, you're so funny." And he walks away. But the way he says it is just very convincing. And she's like, "Do you have to hit on every girl that you see, Dad?" And just like, that didn't seem like hitting on. That seemed like a very astute observation from a 70-year-old man.
Right.
So there were just some really specific things that they were like trying to hit home that he was some kind of womanizer. But if you watch the movie, you see that he's just
has seen a lot of ballet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
he's just
he
super
has
kind.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a moment in the movie where they get pulled over because Bill Murray's chasing the husband with Rashida Jones in the car too fast, and the New York City police pull him over. And he gets out of the car and he kind of starts schmoozing the cops. Then he realizes he knows the cop's dad and the guy's grandpa, so they get out of a ticket. So, which was an unbelievably untimely cop interaction to have. Rich white guy gets off by commiserating with the other white cop. So it was a bit of a tone deaf moment too in the movie, where I was like, it's cute, but it's pretty tone deaf considering that when the movie's coming out.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe save it for another 6 months or just cut the scene altogether.
Or don't make that joke.
Yeah. But the movie itself was so tone deaf.
Yeah, it seems like that's the whole point.
Exactly.
It's not the point; it's the unintended point. Like, look,
because the husband's character goes to like Mexico or something for a business trip, and they decide that's where they're going to follow. And so it's just so much privilege, just so much, of this like rich white person nonsense that you get over it really, really.
Yeah, it's like,
really
of course
fast.
I have a passport and $2,000. Let's go to Mexico tomorrow.
Exactly.
Like,
That's exactly what happened.
What's the big? It's not a big deal. Just go.
Yeah, and she burned something too that I think was really interesting. So in Grand Budapest Hotel, Bill Murray plays this little role where he's a concierge of a hotel that helps Ralph Fiennes' character, who's also a concierge, because they're part of this society of the Crossed Keys, and it's this whole concierge society that like knows everybody, which is kind of how it really is. I mean, concierges know each other. So in the movie, Bill Murray is always like, he always knows a guy at a hotel who can get him information. And so it was another Sofia Coppola ripping off Wes Anderson moment, which she does do that somewhat frequently in her films. And so it was very bothersome that this point in her career, she's still ripping off Wes Anderson. So it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's not homage.
Yeah.
It's theft.
Pretty much, yeah. And I know they're friends, and I know that, all that, but still. So
hang out at they all summer together.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, no, just go ahead and rip me off. It's fine.
Right.
Like, no, it's an homage. Like, no, you
Yeah. So that was our least favorite movies of 2020. Now let's move on to our favorite movies of 2020. Nico? Starts with a T, ends with a T.
Oh, yes.
I almost said something, but I didn't.
Well, that ends with an S. No, I was kidding.
Yeah, it's true.
No.
It does. That's why
Tenet.
Yeah, Tenet.
Was...
You like he, huh?
I did. I mean, I knew... So I was jaded going into it because of Christopher Nolan. So I knew... I already went in sitting at a 3 out of 5, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
But the reason...
Probably a good way to go into it.
The reason it got me is because it met my already high expectations and then delivered stuff I was not ready for. It exceeded beyond my expectation. I was even I allowed for some room of like, okay, there's going to be some squirrely stuff because of it's not time travel per se, but it has that vein. And you guys know how I feel about time travel movies, that it's a slippery slope. Like you can fall off of my radar real fast if you do time travel poorly. So the fact that it was like time travel, but they introduced this crazy idea. Awesome. but then they created a set of rules in a world, and then they lived inside that world the whole time and didn't break it, to the point where like I think I've ordered it. I want to watch it again, because now that you know things, you can go back and see them in the beginning. And you can either verify or deny, like, oh, that was this, that was that. But also the feat required to film a movie in forward and reverse at the same time is mind-blowing.
Like Memento?
Well, I mean, Memento does it too. Memento is also a fantastic movie, but because think about the construction of a shot, right? Let's say you've got a guy who enters a bar, sits down at a table, orders, and then eats his meal, right? That's forward. Now imagine as he was sitting down, somebody walked around behind him and picked something up, and then went out the front door and then drove away. Now in Tenet, he goes into the bar, walks out across the room, sits down, then goes to the machine that flips time, only to then be the guy that is going back around and picks something up and then goes outside and gets car and drives away. So to be able to block that, to be able to script it, to time it, to make sure that it's all just so succinct, so that if somebody like me does go back and watch it, saying like, I'm not going to watch the main character who I'm supposed to be focusing on, I'm going to look at the background, and I want to see him walk by with that item that he picked up. And does he actually pick it up, or does he put it down because it's in reverse? You know, it's like that kind of stuff. And it's just, oh, it's so good. And it's handled so brilliantly. And then, I mean, it's got, I'm not sure who Christopher Nolan uses for music, but it has fantastic sound design, sound editing,
Probably Zimmerman.
Probably. And it's like I said, I had high expectations. It met them and it exceeded them. It blew me away. It was so good.
Nice.
And
I haven't watched it yet.
It was the right kind of blockbuster too, where you going in, it's designed to put people in seats. And unfortunately, it happened in the worst pandemic of our generation, where you couldn't go be in a seat.
And he said, I don't care, release it in theaters.
Yeah, he fought for it. He was like, this is a theater movie. This is a theater movie. And when I went and saw it in a theater, I'm like, okay, I get it. No, I get it. And I'm glad I did, that kind of thing. Where it was just like, I'll wait till it's at home. Like, no, I'm glad I saw it in theater. So yeah, that was my movie of the year. It was Tenet, absolutely. Because it's
nice.
Aside from an amazing plot, it's also like the literal production logistics of making Tenet, and knowing that somebody definitely went over that twice in reverse, like they probably did with Memento, of saying like, all right, stuff is happening backwards, but we're going to shoot it forwards. I need to make sure all these things are in line, or this movie falls apart.
Well,
and they absolutely did that, and it's so good. It's so
his level of depth, like his brain, is pretty crazy. I mean, I think Interstellar. I love Interstellar. I think it's brilliant. I mean, I'm a huge McConaughey fan, anyways.
Right.
But I love the movie. I think it's one of his best. But his movies are always very like thoughtful in that respect, where it's just not a linear. It's not a linear vacation. You gotta.
And then he does a really good job too of taking what is really hard science.
Take a dump and eat it too.
Yes, also that is taking stuff that is really hard to understand in like a walking conversation. Like with Interstellar, the discussion of black holes in time and how that affects things. That's deep, man. Like that's PhD level type stuff. So he can take that and translate it into something in an hour and a half, where everyone walks in, goes, "Oh, I get it." That's hard, man. That is hard to take deep stuff like that, marginalize it down so everyone gets a general idea what's going on, and then push through it.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's really good. He's really good at that.
That's cool. Love it. So Tenet, best movie of the year according to the Mind of Nico. Eric's favorite movie of the year, one we reviewed, not a new movie, was
another not new one. Her. Yeah.
Nice.
See, that surprised me that was yours.
It surprised me too. I really was going through going, what have I seen this year? Because I think I haven't watched much.
Just for podcasts,
so
probably.
It's really just been podcasts. And I think I literally just went through all my audio files and went,
right.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. Her. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think because it's it's a good movie that seems like it should be kind of depressing, and it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it was that perfect little balance that
Mm-hmm.
what's his name, Spike Jones,
Yep.
just found, where it's just like the right percentage of comedy with drama with kind of sci-fi sort of concepts and just all that. It did it for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I enjoyed when things kind of twisted, when the relationship kind of got turned on its head,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden he's not going, oh well, I'm the human and you're a mere, you know, this cyber being. And then pretty soon he goes, oh wait, you can do way more than me. I am the simple, I am
Yeah.
tied to a mortal body, and you are infinite. Oops. Okay. Yeah, I thought that was a great turn, and yeah, I don't know.
Just a great little love story.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice. It just
Mm-hmm.
it hit the notes, and certainly watching it during a pandemic, I think that was good. Of seeing just isolation and people,
Oh yeah.
kind of tied on their phones, anyways, before this, and now we're in this time,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so to have that movie then kind of end on a note of, oh, people are kind of forced now from a thing that happens in the plot. People have to pay attention to each other now. They have to get their heads out of their phones and
Yeah.
Yep.
and look at each other. Great, nice,
Yeah.
lovely.
It's cool. I love it. It's a great movie. Her.
Mhm.
Eric's best movie of the year.
Yeah.
So
From 2010.
yeah.
Whatever.
So I got two again, but you bear with me here. The reason is
All right.
because for one, my favorite movie that we watched for the podcast, and probably my favorite movie of the last 2 years, is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That came out mid 2019. Oh, stop it with your face. I know, because I can't stop talking about it. I feel like everything comes back around to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It always does. But I love it. It's an amazing film. I love it. I think it's great across the board. I mean, Leo in it is amazing, and everybody. And you kind of forget. Oh yeah, Al Pacino's in that, and then you go, oh yeah, Kurt Russell's in the. Oh yeah, it just keeps on rolling and rolling, and I love that.
Even Bruce
But
Lee's in it. Everyone's
yeah,
in that movie.
right.
Yeah.
Even Bruce Lee made it in. Seth Rogen's in it. No, just kidding. That was a Green Hornet reference. I don't know why I needed to do that, which is what Kate, doesn't matter. So, but favorite movie of 2020 though that came out this year was The Gentleman. Actually,
Okay.
yeah. Also did that one on the show because the same thing. I went through all of the movies that we had, and then that we had reviewed, and then I went through all of my recently viewed lists and stuff like that. And yeah, nothing stood out, but The Gentleman definitely stood out. I loved it. It's Guy Ritchie romper, which is super duper fun. But I think that it's just unique enough, and Hugh Grant in it is hilarious.
That's right. That's the kind of stuff that you talk about, how Sofia Coppola's work hasn't matured. Like Guy Ritchie has a formula, absolutely has a formula, but then he does things to make his stuff mature and get better.
Yeah.
And letting Hugh Grant be that character in The Gentleman is what makes it not like Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch or something like that. He's like, all right, I'm using the same people. Like, it's not a surprise when you see my movie, you're gonna see Charlie Hunnam and some other English folks. But then, yeah, to allow a character to be like that, or like Matthew McConaughey, just a wild casting choice too,
Yeah.
where there's a maturity that's coming with his work of saying, I should be able to pull in other talent and make myself in this work better, where she should be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's so good. That's probably up there as well. I did not do the file thing. I should have. I did the sad look at my movie ticket collection and it was like, oh, I'm still on the first page.
Yeah.
Womp,
You can even
womp.
call it that.
I usually do 2 pages front and back, so it's about 80 to 100 tickets, and 2020 is still on the first page.
Oof. Yeah. Well, here's hoping 2021's better. But yeah, great movie. Loved it. definitely highly recommend. So to round out the best things of 2020, this was a nearly unanimous vote, but Eric screwed it up.
I knew,
Yeah.
I
But Eric
know
had
what
two.
everyone else's answers
Yeah.
were.
But your
I
favorite
figured.
show of 2020 was?
I had two.
Yeah, he did.
And the first one was what really got me through the first half of the pandemic. And that was the old 80s G.I. Joe cartoon.
Yeah. Love it.
And, I had seen some amount of them when I was little. And I have a friend out here who just like loves them. It's like, oh, wait till you get to Dr. Mindbender. And just like, this stuff's great. And I was on YouTube. And the Hasbro has a channel on YouTube, and they were just doing like a marathon. So that got me started, and I started watching then. And then I said, all right, let's do it. Because years ago I tried to start watching, and I got through like maybe halfway through season 1, which is very long.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, when you get to the very end of season 1 and then season 2, you're like,
yeah,
this stuff's great. It's wonderfully ridiculous, and I don't know. It was like the perfect thing for a really depressing time, and just to go back. It's true nostalgia because it's the actual thing.
Yeah,
and so it's like a rediscovery. And yeah, I don't know. It was funny. It's like you're seeing this, and also seeing just how we were wired as kids. Where it's just like, yeah, check out this thing that you could kind of consider fascist and whatever. And yeah, military, awesome.
Yeah.
And these are the bad guys. Why? Because they are. Deal with it. And, and
they've got the red lasers.
And buy toys and spend money and just all these things that were really dumped at us, especially in that time. So I think the Reagan administration had deregulated the whole, you can't, like make shows that are essentially giant commercials for toys.
Propaganda machines.
And the 80s, that changed, and that was our childhoods.
Yeah.
So that was a nice kind of going back home in a weird way.
Yeah. And your other was?
My other one, again, being contrarian, not saying what I'm sure you guys said, which, I'm with.
That's fine.
But Teen Titans Go, I put, because I watched plenty of that as well, and I think that's DC at its best, weirdly, because it's incredibly irreverent. The characters are all complete jerks. I think a lot of people that like Teen Titans don't like that show specifically, and I can get that, because they're just buttholes, and it's funny, and you can tell that it's essentially like people our age are writing it, the scripts, because a lot of the references are like, they do Golden Girls jokes, and like they did a Perfect Strangers joke and stuff that like kids would just not even register as being real. They'd just be like,
yeah, Perfect Strangers.
So all those things are, it's great.
Yeah, I know the show thing. I went through the whole Clone Wars and Rebels
this year.
If I had done like what you did of like something that got me through that, like, I don't want to commit a super amount of time to something super heady, but I want something that I know I'm into and that was designed for entertainment.
Yeah, I want to eat frosting.
Let me watch
frosting.
Right. Yeah. It was the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series and the Star Wars Rebels. I mowed through both of those. Do not regret a single second of it.
Yeah.
It was so good, which sets up my love.
Yeah, that's a great ease
great.
into our favorite show of 2020, which was of course The Mandalorian season 2. Such a good show. But it's funny to talk about it from the perspective of the Clone Wars and Rebels, because you wouldn't have the Mandalorian in the way that we have it without Clone Wars and Rebels, because some of our most favorite moments, like bringing in Katie Sackhoff's character, of
Bo-Katan.
You wouldn't have Ahsoka Tano the
Right.
Jedi that emerges right around the middle of the season. So some of the best moments of the show we wouldn't have if it weren't for the creation of Dave Filoni and these characters.
And what's great about it too is because I was talking with Andrea about it, who did not watch any of the animated stuff. So I would ask her at the end of every episode, and I would have to be very, very careful when we're watching episodes, not to pre-squeal like a little girl.
Fangirl.
Yeah, not to fangirl when things were happening.
You don't want to
because,
get a divorce mid-episode.
I mean, but it's like I knew what things were.
Yeah.
And I knew why certain things were happening, and I just had to be like, wait for it. And then we would talk about it later. And I think we were eating dinner one time. We went out and mask, etc. We were eating dinner. We were talking about an episode. I think I went on a no bullshit, pardon my French, like a 35-minute just brain dump. And to her credit, she was awesome.
She's wondering what is going on.
Yeah, she's like, oh my god. She's
she
probably making
2 bottles of wine during
Yeah.
the time.
But
Keep going.
But she sat there, and it was just like data. Here's backstory. Here's history. This is this. I went through the whole thing, and the best part was at the end. It like the lights were still on, so it wasn't like at some point just.
Yeah.
Oh, you in her face? I thought you meant at the restaurant. They let you
that
stay.
too. Yeah,
that was nice of
they
them.
left the lights on for me. No, but like, I mean, I work in IT, so I mean, there's a point where if I'm talking to somebody about something that I do, they're interested, and then the lights go off, and I know that they're out. She was in it the whole time, and at the end, she was like, "That's a lot of information." Like, I know that I didn't even give you all of it.
Yeah, you didn't hear it all.
But it's like
That was just about Dathomir. Okay, now.
Yeah. So there was stuff like that where the show is so good because you do not need any of that information, and the show is still awesome. But then you mix that stuff in, and it's like, it's so good. Or like can we talk about the finale?
Yeah, of course. So spoiler alert, we're going to talk about how the
spoiler for the
Mandalorian
Mando
season 2
like
ends.
there's a ship, and so there's 3 big ship-based activities in Mandalorian season 2. One is R.I.P. Razor Crest, which
do you all know how that was? Everything was spoiled for me. First off, I would open my
phone,
and I would get a visual of pretty much everything.
Yeah,
but the Razor Crest was spoiled by I have like a Lego makers, I think, is on Instagram or something.
Oh no!
And someone had just a crater. And it said "Rest R.I.P. Razor Crest." I was okay, I guess it gets blown up. So I'm like, I wonder what I would have felt if I hadn't known all these things.
It was heart wrenching because there's only really 2 items that survived. It was the little ball, and the spear.
Clearly,
so
both
there's
made
that. That's a huge ship moment. The second huge ship moment is when they're on the planet and the child, aka Grogu, is. He's trancing, and he's making the call out, and there's a ship that enters space, and it's Slave One.
Yeah,
and it was just like, oh, like I had to shut up though because we still had like 25 minutes left in the episode. So I was like screaming into a pillow, like and then that enters in, and it's like this whole show just elevated. Like,
did you put a Boba Fett helmet on when that happened?
Yeah, just.
And you're like, I'm not gonna say anything, but.
And then the very last ship moment is obviously there's a ship that enters into an empty dock when they're rescuing the kid, and from markings, all of it alone, I was like, I know whose ship that is.
Yeah,
I know what's about to happen. And it was ye old Red 5.
Yeah. Well, what's great about it is that there is. In the case of Luke Skywalker, Team 2 Bugliani showing up. So when Ben Quadraneros shows up on the light cruiser,
CGI was exquisite.
Yeah. When Luke Skywalker shows, what the show did extremely well up to that point, though, was it gave you X-wings, little doses of X-wings here and there. Right. It gave you little doses of Jedi here and there. So you kind of almost forget. You're like, oh, this could be anybody. This could be anything.
Right.
When he gets out, you're like, okay, it's clearly a Jedi, but then you see the belt. And if you were obsessed with Return of the Jedi and Luke's costume when he walks into Jabba's palace, you know that it's Luke Skywalker. You also know it's Luke because the green lightsaber, and his green is a particular brand of green, and then the
gloved hand.
But then also there's a moment where he's walking through and he's holding his lightsaber out, and you see it's his lightsaber. So there's just some real moments where you're like, oh man, this is Luke Skywalker, and he's just going nuts. And it's great because you never really got to see Luke be Luke, with the exception of briefly on the sand barge in Return of the Jedi, and then only when he's fighting Darth Vader. So you never really got to see him be a Jedi in really other circumstances.
Well, especially beating up droids.
Yeah.
Where you can have, in a show like this, all the violence you want, but you're smashing
robots.
Computers. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was Clone Wars Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Clone Wars, they just mow through the robot armies, and it's funny too because I remember people were trying not to spoil that part, but of course there's like something that flew across my radar about how Luke used one of the forbidden powers of the Jedi, and my stupid nerd brain was like, well, technically, he did not go through the academy, so it's not necessarily unbeknownst of him that's not supposed to.
You mean
he came after everything burned down?
When he crushes the last death droid or whatever they're called, that's a dark side type thing.
Oh,
anything that like constricts or anything that destroys with force is canonly kind of like leaning dark sidey type stuff.
Well, and I think that he did it with his robot hand. He did it with his Darth Vader hand.
No,
so
but
it kind of works, right?
But for me, the point though is that like it's not like it's like when they have like the French trained chef and then like the home chef, and the French trained chef is like doing sous vide and all this special stuff, and then the guy who just cooks at home is just like slopping butter and lard over stuff, and you're like, oh, that's actually not the technique.
But it all
and the guy's
tastes
like,
good.
it's gonna taste great. What do you want from me?
Well,
like, I got the job done. Like, we're fine here.
The great thing about this show, though, is that with a guy like Dave Filoni as your executive producer, I mean, Favreau himself too is a huge nerd.
Yeah.
But when you've got the literal encyclopedia of all things Star Wars, as EP of your show, you're not going to have issues with bad stuff. You're not going to have things happening that they can't do or whatever,
or that they don't at least they're making the decision and they know what the decision was.
Yeah.
Right. I think we can trust
absolutely.
that. If they do a thing, it wasn't an executive going, we'll do that because the focus group said that plays well.
Exactly.
Right. So that's the big difference.
For sure.
Yeah, it's not like he was carrying a blaster.
Yeah.
It was just firing pop shots off. Yeah, that would have been. Everyone would have been like, "Nope."
Oh, when he came in on that hoverboard, that was sick.
Sweet.
Yeah.
One of the things too,
it was like super awesome to see. Right, to see like Clone Wars, Jedi stuff in live action with a beloved hero as Luke Skywalker. To see him just walk in and like. Because they also did a really great job of creating a tension with those troopers that like, you guys are in trouble. Like this is a no joke. Like you guys are actually in like real trouble now.
right.
And then when like the lone Jedi shows up and just like clears it, like, all right, this is justice. This is what
it's good.
We have all needed, not wanted, needed to like palate cleanse this whole process.
And he did two cool things about the what do they call them? The not death troopers, what they call those guys?
Yeah, I think it's death troopers.
Death troopers. Was for one, the music was great. They've been using the same composer for the last 2 seasons, and he did this sort of like electro, almost dubstep moment when the death troopers would show up in the end there, and it just fit in nicely, and I really appreciated deviating from the normal Star Wars thing for a second, which he never really has done just the normal Star Wars thing. I mean, the Mandalorian theme is on a recorder, like the little wooden
it's like a contra
toy that they give you
contranet and
in school,
a bunch of like wild instruments.
And then I love that. But what is interesting, so I started watching. They released the first episode of the making of the Mandalorian on Disney Plus, and the Death Troopers are people.
Yeah.
They're real people in those suits, and then they just CG'd
made
the
out of
gears and
people.
stuff. Made out of, the
It's
Death Troopers are
people.
people.
Yeah.
It's just great. Then you see why this show is on another level, because they are taking practical effects to another level.
Absolutely.
And stuff. And
Yeah,
creepy Luke Skywalker didn't bother me. His face didn't bug me too much. Not too much.
My only issue was it made me wonder if they deep faked him onto another actor, or if they youngified Mark Hamill, which is what they did. But that was my issue, is that I
No, they used a different actor.
There's a different
It
guy.
was
Is
Luke's.
it?
It was Mark Hamill's voice, but it was a different. It was an actor for Luke Skywalker. Yeah.
I thought I read somewhere that they youngified.
That's what
Mark
they said.
Hamill.
They said they used de-aging technology, but then also they're like, here's the guy that was
Yeah.
used. This
Yeah.
is his face, and it was a different guy.
Oh, that's weird.
It's all confusing, and I want, like, Disney's in the position to deep fake.
Right.
You know, it's like, I get
Oh,
that
yeah,
there's
yeah.
rights issues with deep faking,
Mm-hmm.
but in this scenario, it's
Yeah,
like
you both signed
Disney, you own all this footage
Right.
of Mark Hamill from
something. Yeah,
those
and
years.
my issue with it was that they still haven't worked out the lighting technology.
Right.
Where, like, I knew it wasn't right because the lighting on his face was different than everywhere else. Like, it almost had like a
It's good, but it's
had
not
like
great.
a halo,
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
And,
it's
like,
rushed.
no shadows on his face, kind of thing. So it's like, I know that that's not his real face.
Right. Oh yeah, and just, you know, again, you look at deep fakes, and people were coming out with them right away afterwards.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And you're like, yep, there, his eyes look better immediately in the deep
Yeah.
fake. It's the syncing of the mouth and the
Mhm.
voice is just off.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know how that gets.
Well, that's what
fixed,
I don't
but-
understand is why can episode 8 of The Mandalorian come out, and then 3 days later we have a better deep fake on YouTube than
From
the
Joe
CG
Schmo
face?
Bologna.
Yeah, I don't get that, because it's like they didn't do his scar right. They didn't do anything that
Yeah.
makes Mark Hamill. I mean, it was okay. It didn't bug me too much, but
You knew who it was.
yeah, it was
And-
better than
yeah.
Princess Leia in
Yeah.
Rogue One.
Right.
But at the same time, same thing. Like the guys who were deep faking that and Moff Tarkin, and I mean, why is there a reason why they wouldn't use deep fake instead of CGI the
Like,
face?
that's my only. Well,
There must be a
I
reason
could
for
see
it.
the studio, or like ILM, and maybe it's John Knoll. I don't know. Maybe it's those guys just going, no, we do it this way. We don't do the deep fake thing. I don't know if it's just a mindset that needs to get changed. But again, I get
Well,
where it's a rights issue almost everywhere else.
Yeah.
So this may fall
Everywhere
into my
else, sure,
territory,
but-
where if it's like if they use a certain technology to create an end result but have not licensed or paid for it, they are at copyright fault. It's like in my world, if I use a set of software that I haven't necessarily paid for or give full credit to, that person can come back to me and be like, whoa, I need X amount of dollars, I'm gonna sue you, take it down, whatever. So it may have been a case where ILM literally was they could not license deepfake software. They had to create or use
created
their
it yet.
own version of it. They couldn't
Okay.
use the one that the guy who did it on YouTube did. Like I said,
Right.
it literally might be something as simplistic as that. Is that they literally? It's like we can't, we don't have a license for Photoshop, so we can't use Photoshop.
Well,
They
if anyone
gotta
has the money to
use
buy it,
dot photo.
they'd have it.
No, they absolutely could. But again, it could be one of those things too where it might also be like a technical pride type thing of
Yeah.
saying like, no,
I think
we're
that's what
ILM.
it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So-
Yeah, I think it's John Knoll or whoever kind
Mhm.
of just being like, no, we do CGI. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the
We're
problem
going to target
too
him.
with a moment like that is it limits you from using him, from having him in too much of the scene. And so when I watched it the second time, excuse me, still great, still loved it, but you notice that there's very little Luke Skywalker in it.
Right.
And you
they
notice
purposefully, yeah, it's like the scene plays well in that he's
Mm-hmm.
caped and hooded
Yeah.
through all that beginning so they can have their reveal. But absolutely, they do it so that they only have so much of footage where they have to show his face.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a little obvious at that thing. But there's some nice moment, like R2D2 coming in and then getting excited over seeing, a little baby Yoda was great because it gives you that Star Wars feeling that you want. It tied together the two worlds, in my opinion, perfectly because it's taking Grogu away to train as a Jedi. He'll come back, but what it did is it tied the Skywalker story with the Mandalorian, but it freed the Mandalorian up from us having to constantly worrying if they're going to kill Baby Yoda.
Right.
So now
the formula you were worried about early in the season is now they're free of it.
Yeah. Now the challenge is, now I'm accidentally the ruler of Mandalore, but this lady's my friend. How do we deal with this issue? So now we're dealing with a whole different ball game, which I think could get really interesting. I hope not in the way we're hoping. I think old brown eyes, if you know what I mean. So we'll see what.
The brown eye thing.
We'll see what they decide to do.
Do they bump butts? I don't know how that works.
And the first time I watched it too. What's the
this
other?
This is the way. We don't know what the way is.
We don't know what the way is.
We lost track of the way a long time ago.
The way?
I've taken my helmet off twice.
We're almost extinct because we don't know the way.
Mandalorians have been bumping butts for centuries. That's why the foundlings are our future.
Every clan has its own methods
for procreation,
but none of them are working.
We need more foundlings. We're going.
What if you get? Wait, what if you get two of these? Is that gonna do it?
That's great. So what's the other Mandalorian's name? The other girl, Sabine. Was that her name?
Yeah, she wasn't in it. She wasn't in it.
Right, from Rebels. The Rebels.
Yeah.
Or
Rebels.
You're talking about the other lady that's with what's her butt.
No, no, just the other one that's with Katie Sackhoff's character.
I don't remember her name, but it had been hypothesized early on that the character Sabine Wren, who is from Rebels, was going to show up.
Gotcha.
That lady.
Never makes the appearance, and it makes more sense when you finish Rebels because Hera, who is the admiral of the rebellion, the squadron, the blah 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 blah. She's basically the fleet admiral she's the pilot in Rebels, but becomes the fleet admiral for the rebellion. Her and Sabine go to find Ezra Bridger, who is like quote unquote, as far as they know, the last of the Jedi. So he does something at the end of Rebels, and they're like, "Oops, he's gone now." Those two get together to go find him. So it makes sense.
Thrawn is part of that.
Yes,
Grand
Admiral Thrawn is part of that. Absolutely,
and that's why Bo-Katan's looking for him.
That's why Ahsoka is asking.
Ahsoka's looking.
Ahsoka is. Yeah, that's right.
Bo-Katan is looking for Moff Gideon because Moff Gideon had the saber. Which that whole thing.
Do we know how he got it?
No.
Okay.
He got it from Scoob Kalakorian.
Yeah, because at the end of Rebels, Bo-Katan is the ruler of Mandalore.
How did she get the dark saber though? Because what's his name? Jon Favreau's character in Rebels or Clone Wars had the dark saber at one time, and then
Darth Maul. Darth Maul gets it.
Pre Vizsla
is the guy. Yeah, he's the Mandalorian that had it, and then Darth Maul beats him.
Okay, and then Bo-Katan beats Darth Maul.
Sabine beats Darth Maul.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, she gets it, and then
pay attention to.
I need to look into it, and I'm definitely gonna screw this up. But where it was different between when Sabine gave it to Sabine, does essentially what Mandalorian did, was I yield, you are the rightful one, and the reason that Sabine could do it is because Sabine was of the same royal lineage as Bo-Katan, so it wasn't like. It was allowed. It was right. It was almost like if there's like the prince and then the second prince, and if the first prince is away at war and the second prince comes in and becomes the ruler, as soon as the first prince comes back, the crown goes up. Same kind of thing with the dark saber, is that Sabine got it and then she's like, wait, no, you're like my older sister, it's technically yours.
Oh,
So that's how it was able to slide up to Bo-Katan. But it has to be won in combat. So that's why when Gideon brilliant move was like, well, I'm not going to stand on the command deck. I'm obviously going to go to where the Mandalorian's going to be, because even if I win, awesome. But if I lose, I've just now created this whole other problem. So I still am like the winning bad guy. And so that's why that whole thing is brilliant. But the fact that, yeah, right, the Mandalorian is not part of that lineage. He can't just yield and give her the dark saber. Yeah.
Interesting.
But without knowing any of that, all of that information is shared and can be absorbed and then is like revealed during the episode.
Yeah.
Without you being like, well, just give it to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you know all that stuff, it just like, it's that frosting on.
Well, and it's brilliantly written
salt and
in the way that it makes Moff Gideon is the narrator of he is the third person omniscient. He's the narrator where he's explaining to us, the audience, what's going on in his skeevy little way.
True. Good exposition dump.
Yeah.
That's like how you give a character exposition but not make it lame. Because you go, oh, I hate you while you're telling me the exposition.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well,
Good
and
job.
when you put it in the hands of an incredibly capable actor that, Giancarlo Esposito is, it makes you eat it up, because you're like, oh yeah, tell me more, Giancarlo. And it's great. But that moment where he shoots the other Mandalorian, the first time I watched it, I thought that she died. Like, I thought he somehow like shot her under her armor or something and she was like dead. And I was like, oh, that made me really sad, because it was like, I didn't get like, wow, how did they die? But then the second time I watched it, she was like standing back there in the corner. I was like, oh, yeah, she's good to go. Everybody's covered in metal. It's hard to find people sometimes on these sets. But yeah, great ending to a great series.
It does put you in a weird spot though, because it's like 10,000 foot level. Why are you watching The Mandalorian? Baby Yoda. Like, okay, so what happens to the show now that we've removed Baby Yoda from the show?
Well, Baby Yoda was that beautiful device to get mainstream in.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what was great about it. It was like, without Baby Yoda, it's a fringe Star Wars show that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
They make the cutest little alien baby, and all of a sudden every person who is on whose Facebook is covered in puppies and kittens goes, oh, what's this? It was a brilliant move in that way. And then the fact that they don't want to market it the way that Disney or Lucas usually do, and so it just organically happens. That helped. And so I think that was the way in, but now people are grabbed. Now who knows?
Oh,
Maybe
I'm
viewership goes
definitely season 3 for sure.
down. Oh, I mean, we are, but I think talking about like the people who were only in because of
are they gonna cut loose?
Alien, are they gonna keep watching? I guess
I think some will.
I don't think they're gonna have issues with ratings.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the show is so. I mean, it has rendered, in my opinion, it's completely rendered useless episodes 7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I kind of am wondering. One of my friends at work is like, "Oh, they're trying to tie in maybe the Snoke cloning and all that stuff," and I was like, "Can they just
he's in there
and just kill it?"
Yeah.
I mean, he makes a
just kill it.
He makes a glass cameo in the Mandalorian. He's in one of those jars.
Really?
So, they could call it an Easter egg, or most likely they're trying to tie it all together because that's their job, and they're trying.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's what they do kind of brilliantly. And Dave Filoni is on record many times talking about how brilliant he thinks he doesn't necessarily say that the movies, like the films of the prequels, are brilliant, but it's the story that he finds as brilliant and he thinks is great. So he's okay with the story, and so they're milking the best parts of the story in the sense of saying references to Jango Fett and things like that, which I think is great. I think it's great to throw in that stuff because it exists, it's there, but we don't have to dwell on it and the Mandalorian can be a better show than any of the movies have ever been. You know, it really is better in so many ways than I think the original trilogy, all the movies. And something I was talking about with Nick
Empire
earlier.
still is better, but
No, yeah, no, I guess no. Star Wars and Empire, I think, are still like
but
they still
this
live.
is
That's sacred. That's
absolutely-
sacred ground. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But this
no,
is
for sure.
absolutely, especially this season,
Mhm.
and how quickly it's gone. And because that was the thing with when episode 7 came out. Quick tangent. I went, oh, they're gonna throw away all the beauty that does exist in that prequel era,
Right.
because they just want, again, those executives went, prequel bad, old stuff good, so let's throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Is what they did with like episode 7, and I went, oh boy, here we go. But it hasn't taken that long, because I knew they'd come crawling back to it, and it's happened sooner than I thought, frankly.
Yeah.
And so it's just, again, Filoni being part of it is wonderful, and Favreau gets it. Yeah.
Well, I think Clone Wars and Rebels made it all happen. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it legitimized the
for sure.
prequels, and it legitimized that middle world between the original trilogy and the prequels, and so it kind of gives life to all of it.
Yeah. It showed the potential of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think,
Right.
again, it's like when I look at the sequels, I feel like all the sequels they were just shutting doors left and right.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, Jedi being trained? No, we're shutting that door. Is there a new Republic? No, we're shutting that door. And I was like, what are you doing? Why are you closing doors?
Yeah.
And so it's like Filoni and Favreau, they're opening doors and they're expanding. And they're saying, we can go this direction, we can go that direction. See? It's a giant galaxy, dum-dums.
Right.
Where the sequel trilogy went, we don't know what we're doing. People like Millennium Falcon and Chewbacca, and we don't know what else
Right.
they like.
Yeah.
And it was just is shutting everything else down.
Yeah.
And
That's a great perspective. I never thought about it that way, because I had absolutely no problem with the fact that there was still the Empire. And so it makes perfect sense if you talk about it from the perspective of episode 7 being the next, movie after Mandalorian, or, the next sort of like thing we know, because the Empire just kind of kept going for the most part, and became the First Order in a way. So, and of course, like when a major regime goes down, there's still those hardliners that stick with it, that still kind of live.
I mean, the infrastructure is still in place.
Yeah. And they
It's not
they
like- it's
bash
not
on
like-
the New Republic, which I love that they
Yeah.
bash on the New Republic, because I just watched the first 3 episodes of the first season of The Mandalorian the last few days, and they always refer to the New Republic as a joke, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Ugh, it's a joke. Like, don't even,
but
they're not
too,
legit."
it's like,
it's great.
they also have to, because it just gets blown up in episode 7. You're like, okay. I guess that's a non-issue.
Yeah,
Cool.
just kidding. Yeah,
It's back to rebellion versus empire. Okay.
I love that.
different
Opening
names.
doors, keeping doors open, all that kind of stuff. And creating a new lineage of characters like Ahsoka Tano is going to become like one of the biggest Star Wars characters of all time.
They announced it in like the Star Wars con or Disney con, whatever you want to call it, that they're right. There's
Investor meeting or whatever it's
there's
called.
the Cassian Andor is getting a spinoff.
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka is getting a full treatment, and then they've got at the end of Mandalorian they did the
Of course,
the
Boba Fett.
post-credit trailer with the books of Boba Fett or the story or whatever that's called. So that was awesome. I mean, that was like, right. Again, it's just opening possibility of saying this is a big place.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff is going to happen, and get ready for it. I remember when Boba Fett first came around, I think I was actually like mad in the sense of like, no, he dies. He dies. Don't bring him back. That's silly.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they start bringing in the lore of the Beskar armor and stuff, it's like, okay, yeah, no, this makes sense that this stuff's like indigestible and essentially indestructible. So he's gonna have a minute to blow up the Sarlacc pit or whatever, however he gets out. I don't remember how he gets out, but it's like, okay, I can play with that a little bit more. And then the fact that he came back and did like the, this was my father's armor, like this is my father's sword type of thing. And then he pulls up like the directory and it's like, see, it's just like it's tied to my genetics in all this stuff. And I thought that was super cool. even to the point where later on Bo-Katan makes a reference of like, I think she says it so subtly too. She's like, I've heard that voice before. Like, because she in the rebel stuff, they deal with the clone troopers, like the ones that survive the order and stuff like that. So it's like she's making direct reference to the fact that she knows that Boba Fett
is a clone. She calls him a clone.
She calls him a clone. She doesn't know that.
You mean your donor?
Your donor.
She doesn't know that he's not, but to her that voice is so familiar because she dealt with the clones.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of stuff where you're like, oh man, God, that's good. Like it's just really good.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing that again Disney sequels when they started didn't bank on was that there's a giant amount of little kids that grew up on the prequels. And now they're spending money. Now they're the millennials. And it was like, they went, oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, there's money there too. Oops. Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't ostracize that giant portion of the newer fandom.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense why
okay.
There's so much love there. Yeah, just make it. That's why Filoni loves it so much. It's because he did. He made it better.
He saw the potential. And there's gobs of potential. Clone Wars, you're like, there's tons more potential. That's why for me, like going to where they killed the Clone Wars and went to Rebels, I was like, okay, we're back to this like kind of boring world. Because when I look at Empire ruled galaxy, it's like boring because that's the point. It's fascist. Everyone's kept down. It's very minimal, you know. But you go back before, and you're like, ooh, endless possibilities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it'd be fun to see what is done with the Cassian stuff, because with the Cassian Andor type series, because you know it has enough ties that it could make sense to have stuff that we've seen in Mandalorian and plenty of stuff from Clone Wars and Rebels probably, because that's all kind of creeping up on the same,
it's crazy. There's so many things that they did too with unanswered questions without going too deep into it too. But like, you know, you've got the whole pre-Rebel stuff with Cassian Andor, but that's also the same time as Solo, right? Where he's a smuggler, and so you've got Billy D. Williams' character.
Lando.
Yeah, thank you. Lando Calrissian. So you got all the Lando stuff. You've got the Solo stuff. I think that's too young for Poe Dameron Spice Run type things, but maybe there's a different Dameron, like Papa Dameron kind of thing.
Smedge Mantilles.
Oh, don't you dare.
Ooh, we gotta talk about that for a second though.
We'll talk about that
after
in a second,
you're done. Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is what's interesting to me in the Mandalorian, and I don't know the answer to this, was he goes into an Empire base that he uses a fake security stick to get access to, and then he takes his helmet off and the system doesn't explode, which means that his face is in the system for some reason and was not flagged as rebel, traitor, prisoner, whatever. He got full beans access to that information. So that's one of those like, why? I want to give me that information. I want it.
Yeah.
And then, so it's that kind of stuff where they set that up that makes you question. Then you just like let it slide because you need to finish the episode. But you're like, wait a minute, let me come back to that, because it was such a subtle like, hold on,
right?
Give me more of this. And like that's where the opportunities for like to mix him into like the Cassian Andor stuff was like, yeah, man, maybe, who knows? You know, maybe there's in the early days of after the siege and he's in the foundling stuff and he's a young Mandalorian. Maybe they run across Cassian Andor and the rebels in some form and they're doing something in a military thing, or who knows, man. Like,
yeah,
because even so, here's the segue. So even in like Rebels, Wedge Antilles is being trained by the Empire in their flight school, and is the early rebels find out that there are students in the academy that want out. They know it's BS, but like, you don't mess with the Empire. So there's a whole like 2 or 3 episodes about stealing pilots from the Empire Flight Academy. One of those is my all-time favorite, Wedge Antilles, and he comes over, and then so it's like there's precedent there of people being involved with the Empire, but then swinging over.
Right, trained. I think Biggs, he's in the
Mhm.
academy, and
Yes,
New Hope.
right.
So there's this feeling that a lot of people that are rebels probably got trained by the Empire because
Yeah.
that's just what you did. That's where you went to school.
Yeah,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
like they're in the system or whatever. So
Right. Yeah.
And that leads us into the second worst 3 minutes of 2020, which is the teaser trailer for Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Squadron.
I
man.
couldn't
I have to.
like
I'll be
besides
back
like
right quick.
what's that?
I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. 1 second.
Okay, here. Can we take a super quick pause?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
I want to hear you rant.
yeah.
But
I
I
guess I'll
really
sit
have
here
to
and
step
talk
away for a
all
second.
alone for a
Yeah,
second
talk
to
about
our audience of one person. All right, so Eric and Nick have to step away. So, Nick's back. That's good.
Sorry, I know that the dog was going crazy.
I was about to be left alone with our audience of one, and I didn't really know what to say.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it in a second. Eric wants to hear the rant. But that was this was a year though that said of strange trailers where you would see the trailer drop for Black Adam coming in 2022, and then you'd watch it and it was like, wait, it was a whole year of wondering, is this really a trailer or is this a trailer someone made up?
Exactly.
To be a
Is this a
trailer.
fan trailer?
Yeah. And so it seemed like everything was sort of a fan trailer all year because there was nothing being shot. And so if they
Yeah.
were doing trailers, it was teasers
And
of shooting.
cinematics and
Yeah, exactly. Animation
art concepts.
or talking to the future director about why they love what they're about to make or whatever else. But just this year was the year that everyone wished 2019 was in terms of camera releases and tech in like the camera world. And so 2020 was also the big series drop for 2021, 2022. Like so many announcements of new shows.
Well, I think it was also I'm honestly curious is if we weren't stuck at home in a pandemic and it was shut down, would we have had such an avalanche of information?
Right.
Or is it like the PR type of thing of saying like, hey, we're still here, we have plans, please don't run away. Like let us just maybe tip the hat a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you know that we do have like we've got a backlog for 3-5 years.
Yeah.
Not a backlog of like 1 year. We've got a 3 to 5 year plan now.
Yeah.
And we want to get there, and this is what it looks like. Just don't leave, stick around. We'll get there, I promise.
Well, but it opened a whole new door to the entertainment world that was still holding on to movie theaters, and then realizing everybody already knew, even if they hadn't accepted it yet, everybody knew that direct to consumer was going to be the way that the vast majority of content was being consumed. But the pandemic just accelerated that.
Oh, for sure.
It accelerated just direct to consumer in terms of goods as well. So where companies like anybody, just Walmart even, it accelerated their means of getting up to par with Amazon in a way that they wouldn't necessarily have worked hard to become if there wasn't a pandemic. So I think that was part of the impetus for announcing all of these new shows. It was like Disney Plus knew if we need to stay relevant, we need to start pumping out new shows.
And I wonder too if they're okay with realizing that there's going to be some stinkers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when a lot of people kind of went, here we go, they're going to have 10 trillion shows. It's them probably going, yeah, and we'll see. Now we can expect, because now when it's not just, we're going to make a trilogy and that's it. And it's like, oh boy, you don't want to do that anymore.
But Disney is in a unique position that Netflix, HBO, Hulu isn't. And it's in the sense that all of their existing content is evergreen. It's perennial stuff that people are going to come back to year in, year out constantly. It's Pixar, it's all the Disney movies, it's all that kind of stuff. So they have content that's not going to ever change, and they're going to keep people on the platform because of that. So they don't have as many shows, and yeah, they're probably going to have some stinkers. But right now, when you're talking about original content that's based around their properties and not like Netflix, where it's like this show's about chess, this show is about autistic kids, this show's about, it's just all over the place. Disney's got this very narrow through line of their property. Like if it's been a ride, we're going to make a show about it, or sort of, not in a not in a sarcastic way, just in the sense that we can keep all of this kind of stuff on brand, and that's going to kind of set their app apart, their platform apart.
Mm-hmm. But then once the Marvel shows start firing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited for those, yeah.
For sure. But what I'm not excited about is rollerblading. I could not
on a retired military base.
I could not have been more like, I wanted to
inline
barf my guts out. It was like,
or was she was it old roller skates?
No, it was rollerblades. It was rollerblades.
Yeah, rollerblades.
Yeah. But so we're talking about the Rogue Squadron trailer, quote unquote. It's not really a trailer. It's just Patty Jenkins on rollerblades talking about why she likes fighter pilots. And you may as well have just lined up 30 baby Yodas and ran over them with a freaking dump truck, because it was just like that. It was that level of awful. I hate rollerblading.
That's a great YouTube video. Let's make that happen.
I'm sure that's
but use the dialogue of the trailer.
No, we need like a tank tread type of caterpillar. We need a caterpillar to run
caterpillar. Yeah. It was just so ridiculous, and it's just like, just stop it. Just stop it. Like at this point, I'm just annoyed now with the whole process. Like Rogue Squadron has, you've said it, Nick, it's like sacred ground.
Yes.
For us as 40-year-olds now. When we were kids, all we wanted to do was to be an X-Wing pilot in Rogue Squadron or Red Squadron or whatever it was. So this is like super sacred ground. So for me, for the first taste of this to be middle-aged white lady on rollerblades getting ready to get into her X-Wing, like, you may as well have just shot me. Like, you may as well just killed all my dreams. I hated it so much. And it was just
many
levels.
It wasn't great.
No.
It's a really poor lens on the material. And now that 84
tanked
is in the blender, I am scared. My faith in it is shaken, and I'm not trying to be like overly dramatic. I'm being legitimately serious. That
we're talking about Star Wars. Be dramatic. It's okay.
Well, no, but I mean, it's one of those things.
I
It's
hope
almost
that Ben Quadranero show is good. That's all I want.
But I mean, this is literally this is like this is the guy on the Titanic who sees the iceberg, but it's shift change, and he forgets to tell the guy behind him that an iceberg is coming. Like I'm looking at this going, listen, nope. Like again, Rogue Squadron is sacred territory, and it is also unshakable territory in the sense that, like, I mean, I have my own penchant for Wedge Antilles, but you can try to put him in peril, but you can't kill him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, it depends on what, I mean, Wedge takes over for Luke as commander of the Rogue Squadron. And it's like, well, he shows up in episode 9,
right?
With he's manning the gun in the Falcon with Lando flying. So it's like, he lives.
Yeah.
You can put him in all
his cranky butt to come back and do a movie.
Yeah, and it's like, you can put him in all the fake movie peril you want, but you need to be very careful about what you do with Rogue Squadron. Like, this is
think
not
of all the Porkins they can go through, though.
Lots and lots of Porkins.
The Porkins eye.
Now my first thought
is like
the burned in memory of what Rogue Squadron is going to be is Lady in Rollerblades. And I hate it now. It's just like, I'm so mad about it. I just don't. I mean, I think if Kathleen Kennedy wasn't the head of Lucasfilm, that would have never flown. Like, I just don't understand what they were thinking.
Never flown.
And and now with Wonder Woman being such, I mean, there is nothing good being said about 84 right now at all. And so I wonder where they're at in the process in terms of pre-pro. Like, I think they're just barely.
pusher.
Yeah, what are we
Be a
doing now? Like, what's the
consulting
plan?
director.
Yeah, because I
Well,
mean they're
Disney
vicious.
and especially Kennedy has had no problem going. Oh, I changed my mind. You
Just
were
kidding.
directing this thing.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, we need another Howard.
Yeah.
Is Ron around?
Do
Where's
we
his
have?
daughter?
Do we,
Where's
yeah,
Bryce?
exactly.
Well, and then
exactly.
what's even interesting
Yeah.
about
We're
like
gonna need another Howard.
Do we have someone from Tasmania? New Zealand's fine, but Tasmania would be great.
but like what even is what as much as we want like a Rogue Squadron movie,
A woke
what do you
squadron.
Rogue Squadron?
We're trying.
But like what do you want from it? You know what I mean? Nobody wants to watch just an hour and a half of them flying missions and blowing shit up. So it's like, what is this movie? Like, what is it?
Is it a movie or is it a show? Because I don't even know what's a movie.
I
and what's
believe it's a
show anymore.
movie.
That's a movie. Okay.
Yeah, I think Rogue
I
Squadron
have
is
no
a
idea
movie.
anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just like, there's some stuff coming out.
starring Patty Jenkins as
The jank.
rollerblades.
But the one thing, though, and she's like, my dad was a pilot of F4 Phantom. So I was like, oh, that won me over a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I enjoyed the story part.
Those beautiful murder machines.
It was just her getting into her Pontiac Aztec, to take off her rollerblades. Just like it was killing me.
Yeah, it was like a weird Mr. Rogers thing. Like he's changing into
It
her
was, yeah,
Mr.
it's
Rogers
like,
shoes.
We want to give something, but we have nothing to give. What do we do? Yeah. And then
Well, I think what you do is you pull the Ghostbusters card, and just have a hangar, and you see sparks flying, and then the hangar door opens up, and it's an X-wing.
right.
Cut. That's simple and easy, and isn't gonna make people like me mad because you didn't throw in rollerblades. There's no reason in the world to put rollerblades in anything, so I don't get it. What the deal is?
No, you're not
that.
wrong. It's a super disconnect because
Massive.
when it starts, it's her. You see her shadow of her skating, and it's like,
Oh, and I
Alright,
thought
what do
that it
we-
was like Top Gun or something. I thought that it was like
Yeah.
an 80s movie happening. And then when it revealed what it revealed, I was just very disappointed.
Yeah.
But Wedge Antilles, y'all better be careful.
no, he's sacred ground, man.
Yeah. So going back to also so I watched Rogue One recently, a few days ago, and it is interesting that being the first standalone live action movie. And it's so interesting how different it was approached to, like, when you look at it through the filter of The Mandalorian. Like you said, Eric, it was all doors closing. That whole entire movie is doors closing. It's killing every character.
Right.
Boom, 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 boom. And to the point where it's even setting up characters' death, like Bail Organa and things like that. So it's just constant doors closing. Whereas, so you're watching the movie and you're just like, well, I don't really care about the movie anymore, because
what
you
are the
know
stakes?
what
'Cause
happens.
I
Yeah,
know
everyone's
these
gonna
people
die.
don't. Yeah. Right.
And so with the Cassian thing, it's like I like it because I think that I love Diego Luna, but it's just like, but you already kind of know his fate, so now I'm just kind of
Yeah.
bummed out about the fact that there's a show about him.
Yeah, it's the Titanic, like
Yeah.
you've said different times, Nico. It's just like, we know what's going on. So how are you going to make this lovely? Oh, a K2SO. Oh, look at their fun relationship. Well, the robot gets blown up, and
Yeah,
they all blow up.
eventually he dies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, in a nuclear explosion.
One show I am curious about where they are finally going back in time a ways is The Acolyte. We'll see what they do with that.
What's that?
It's like it's going back into High Republic era, maybe like 300 years before the prequels.
Oh,
They're also launching books and comics that are going back to the peaceful era.
That is the one component of that honestly makes me nervous, because I saw a special about where they pulled in television, comic, novelists. They brought in all of the peripheral ancillary knowledge of Star Wars and said, we want to start over with something, but we're going to go back. And then my first, honestly, was like, yes. My only pause on that was something that they said in there where they're like, and we're going to reach into, like, so they brought on all these people from these different worlds to build something, but then they're going to have them re-disseminate back out. And it's like, wait, so now I need to definitely read the book or get the comic. Can't miss the TV show because the movie's not going to make any sense. So it's like, don't, I appreciate you bringing in all this other knowledge, but then don't do like the marketing campaign thing where you spread it to all these revenue streams to try to make it stick. Like something needs to, like the original trilogy, something needs to be the spear point, which stuff can come off of, but you can't have pieces be missing because you didn't read the comic,
right?
Or something like that. Like something has to be the spearhead that drives it.
And I think they're definitely too scared yet to, it's like, again, if Mandalorian didn't work, there would be none of this stuff. Or at least mostly none of it. The Andor thing was rumored way back when, so that was that was happening, and maybe a couple other things. But yeah, like going back to the Republic, like old Republic stuff, that wasn't going to happen for a very long time. And so yeah, this has opened all that up. Oh, people are liking prequel-y things. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they follow like the old video games, like Knights of the Old Republic, like if they go to the coder stuff and just stay in that playground, right? Like don't you make allusions to the future type stuff, but just stay in that like decade, that 10 years or whatever. Just stay there and do all the work there. You don't need to set up Palpatine or any of that nonsense. Like just stay in your realm.
Will probably come into it at some point.
And work. Yeah. Because I would watch stuff about the old Jedi Academy, the initial takedown of the Sith. Like I played the video games, loved them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like I could live in there for 2-3 years.
Is it supposed to be live action?
Well, that's the thing.
I think it's a show.
Right, it's a show, and then like a standalone. But then also, like I said, there's rumor of comic and novel, and it's like, oh, man.
I think it's definitely a dipping a toe because I think they're still worried about and especially because it's. In canon, it's 1,000 years apiece, so they're like plucked right in the middle of that kind of. So you're like, they have an interesting concept, which I can spoil. They've already said what this concept of, at least the novel, I think, and some of the comics are, which is it's the Holdo thing in Last Jedi when Laura Dern blasts into light speed into the ship in the Snoke ship or whatever. And causes all that. So essentially that happens on like a hyperlane, and it causes chaos where there's debris flying at light speed all over the galaxy and causing like massive destruction. And so the Jedi have to come in and like help. And then I think there's like pirates that come in and are probably, once places are decimated, then pirates try and loot. And so it's Jedi trying to keep the peace.
Interesting.
So it's saying it's not the Sith. What do we do when we don't have a big villain? Oh, let's make an event that causes chaos. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. I don't know what the Acolyte will be.
I forgot about that part in that movie. I've blacked out most of those last 3 movies completely, especially Laura Dern, that ridiculous costume and that ridiculous hair.
Yeah. Hey, TJ Maxx came in handy.
Is that where they did their shopping for the costumes?
It looked like for her.
Yeah.
It looked like they went to TJ Maxx, and the first thing they grabbed, they threw on her and said, "We're filming.
Yeah,
do you want to do a fitting first? No.
No.
Let's just go.
Do you think your neck looks long? No. Just go.
I'm fine."
It was crazy. It was just too much. That movie's ridiculous.
That poor guy.
Yeah.
Knives Out. He's good. Just,
Yeah.
I'm sure he wants to avoid Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like crazy as well.
Well, I listened to an interview with, I didn't really catch exactly who he was, but I don't know if he wrote like the initial story or the script. Yes?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're raising your hand. Oh,
question?
For the so what would be episode 7. And he was talking about how bad 8 is. It's just like a really funny moment where I'll have to find out who it was. I don't even remember who this guy was, but it was just, he's old guy, and he's just mad about how terrible episode 8 is. And so, which I think is great, because it's like, it's by far my least favorite. It's one of my least favorite movies of all time, like let alone least favorite Star Wars movies. It's just such garbage. The whole
It was divisive.
thing.
People loved it or hated it.
Yeah.
I was indifferent, but yeah. Right.
Indifferent is worse than hating it in some
I
ways.
guess so. At the end of the day, and I watched it like twice in a row because I
Back to
watch
back.
it with like a group of friends after I had watched it by myself, and I was like, oh, I gotta slog through this. And then we came out, and like at least half of them were like, yeah. I was like, her.
You're not my friend anymore. Yeah. Well, before we wrap it up, any honorable mentions before we take off instead of complaining about Star Wars for another hour?
Oh man. Probably.
What else did I have?
Yeah.
You know?
No, it was a tough year, man. The year was just like find something that makes you happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty
it wasn't.
Eat
It
some
was
frosting.
everyone's allowed to dally into some stuff and go back into old stuff and watch some of your old favorites. I was telling Matt we watched we watched Back to the Future. I noticed some things. I watched Too Fast, Too Furious. Noticed some things. I can rant about later, but no, for the year. I mean, like I said, my movie intake is severely dropped versus my normal intake, and I've made exceptions for some movies and some for the others. I watched Monster Hunter, which is based off a video game, but it's Paul W.S. Anderson, who's married to Mila Jovovich. So it's like
they keep banging out stuff.
Yeah, they keep
monsters.
I don't hate their work because I know when the two of them get together, it's designed to consume popcorn.
Right.
So it's
now, my one quick question is: when is Kate Beckinsale and Mila Jovovich gonna do a team up?
Yeah.
Like, how did that never happen?
Right.
How did Resident Evil and Underworld or whatever?
Yeah.
How did those not? That was perfect. That
in some form, right? How did those two worlds not smash
From your
into
lips
each
to
other?
God's ear, huh?
Weird. Yeah. Right.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. I was doing.
I watched on if you have HBO, His Dark Materials, which there's a movie that came out a long time ago with what? Did you say semen?
That's all I can think of. It says His Dark Materials. I'm like, semen?
I was thinking about how the Mandalorians make babies.
Nice. Butt to butt.
His brown materials.
There was wow. So there's a movie that came out a long time ago called The Golden Compass, which is based off of a set of novels that was highly contentious because of its anti-religious statements and whatever.
Yeah.
The movie had like Daniel Craig, Sam Elliott's in it,
CGI polar bear with armor.
CGI polar bear, Bernard Bjornson. So HBO grabbed the series again and made a TV show out of it. The TV show season 1 concluded right at the end of the beginning of the pandemic, so like last February or something like that. It wasn't bad. It followed essentially the same story, made some adjustments, but the new season just started, which the second movie was never made because it tanked so much or it got so much protest that they didn't make the second one. So the new season just started. It's pretty good. It's interesting stuff. Conceptually, it's really, really interesting. It's funny, the girl who plays Laura Balakwa, who is the main character, is the girl who played X-23 in Wolverine.
Oh, right.
So great.
It's interesting to see like range, like character range from a young actress. Like, it's really, really interesting. So that's really good to do.
Nice.
His Dark Materials on HBO.
Witcher. I had forgotten about till now. That was fun, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic, wasn't it? That was good timing for like some fun trashiness.
Yeah. What's interesting about all these facts? What's fun about the Witcher stuff too is like it's a novel series, but in the novels, if you read them, you never get any of the actual like monster hunting. It's all just them in like bars talking about doing all of it. So people are like, why are you making this a show? Like, they never show anything. So the fact that they actually had him fighting monsters and stuff in the TV show, everyone was like, oh, okay. Because then it leaned more into like the video game side of The Witcher. Yeah, because I had some people I know that read the novel and they're like, yeah, no, it's just a bunch of them talking about fighting monsters, but there's never like chapters of him fighting monsters.
Interesting.
Yeah, that show is actually super, and that's got a second season coming out pretty soon too. Henry Cavill's getting yoked for that.
Yeah.
If he, his leg heals or whatever happened.
Oh,
on
yeah, he hurt
set.
himself. Fell off a horse or something, right?
Yeah.
Should we talk about Tom Cruise? That whole thing.
Yeah, his rant. You know, it's an interesting thing because I listened to the rant, but then I also listened to Bill Burr talking about the rant on his podcast, and it was surprising that Bill Burr was kind of like on his side, and it's kind of the side that I would take in a way. Or
Yeah.
Everybody, we all have our limits. We all have the point at which we do or say something that we regret or feel that we hadn't. Yeah. And you know that Tom Cruise is going to have that moment, or he probably already does, have regret or remorse, because everybody unequivocally across the board says that he's like the greatest. Like the nicest and the greatest.
Really learns people's names.
Yeah.
Really respects everyone that's involved. Yeah, he puts in that work that says, okay, this is what a superstar should be.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So if he was pushed to the limit to have that level of a rant, I won't say the words that Bill Burr said, but he said basically that means that this was not the first time that those people were doing that.
Right.
And the COVID protocols in Hollywood right now are out of control. And so it's a minor miracle to make a movie in a great year, let alone a pandemic year. So especially it's a major miracle. Yeah, exactly. Locations. And a Mission Impossible movie. So
and somebody pointed out too that it's people hear Tom Cruise the actor and think it's like the Christian Bale thing where he just flipped out as the actor. But Tom Cruise is EPing this, like he's an executive. He's got more than just like actor skin in this game. So he basically had the boss rant, which is correct,
boss.
Not the actor spoiled brat rant, which is how it was originally pitched. It was like, oh, a spoiled brat actor loses mind. Like, no, this is the boss who's like, I put this stuff in place.
Yeah,
like you guys being selfish are ruining it for so many people that you don't even know about. And the fact that you're like, meh, is really pissing me off.
And you're talking about a lot of different people on sets. And even it could be huge set. It could be, I think that Brian and I did together for 5 days. It was just a short film that he had written and we co-directed. We hired a sound person and her sound assistant, and it was just a bad hire. And this person, she was the worst and was a massive complainer, was always feeling sick or ill, was complaining about the food and this and that. And so when you have a giant group of people that, many of which have never worked together, you're going to have some stinkers. You're going to have some rotten eggs. And so that's probably just the case. And he'd probably warned them before. And the actual truth is that it's going to get shut down if people aren't following the rules. Right. So he just lost it, and I'm going to give him a full pass on that.
Well, and two, because it's audio, it could have been behind locked doors. He could have pulled them in to a room, and you could just hear them outside.
Yeah.
And someone's outside.
And it definitely sounds like somebody's like a distance away.
Yeah.
Who just happened to like pull their phone out and was like,
recording.
So that's like my only thing is like, for sure Tom Cruise is stressed. So it's like, did he just kind of lose it out of the blue? Maybe, but yeah, it was probably building. But again, you get his stress. Everything he says is right. The only thing that's left is, what were those circumstances leading up to it?
Well, and you have to remember too that we hear the audio for 10 minutes. That conversation was happening for at least 20 minutes before somebody started recording. We did not hear that conversation at point 0. So we have no idea what happened.
80 miles an hour when you start hearing it.
Right. So there's content way before the recording.
Sure.
Definitely. And he's kind of saying all the things that we all want to say to coworkers at some point in time. So,
well, and he's like you said, he gets a pass. I think I commented like he's earned a ticket for life.
Yeah,
because he could have played the whiny star comment, but everything he says is what needs to be said. Like you are taking your lax irresponsibility has a much broader effect than you even comprehend, and the fact that you don't know makes it worse. And you're brazenly doing this, throwing it in my face. Tell me to calm down. Like, no, man, there are hundreds of thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of $1 million at stake. and you're just gonna be like, I'm gonna do this thing.
Mhm.
No,
Not how it
not
works.
gonna no.
Mhm.
Trust me, it's
It's like Paramount is counting on me to get this thing done.
sets are
Look
stressful.
at what else Paramount's got going on.
It's got crickets. Crickets happening.
Yeah.
We got June 2021 is when Top Gun is coming out. So
Is that the new
that's the
tentative
new
release
date?
date?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
was the original date on that?
It was supposed to be like
last
June
March?
of this year. Yeah.
It had come and gone.
And then they moved it to December and then moved it again. So we'll see.
But two, he's a guy that puts his money where his mouth is. He's doing his stunts. He's doing crazy stunts.
Well, he breaks his ankles
kooky
and
craziness is he puts it on screen. He goes and sees something and goes, "I'm going to put that in a movie and I'm going to do it." And then he goes and does it.
definitely.
Okay.
No,
You have
he's
to
awesome,
respect
yeah.
it. For as kooky as he might be or whatever, say, hey, you can't not respect him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Love it. Well, guys, glad we did this. Been fun.
Yeah.
That is the best and the worst of 2020. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening to all of season 1. If you want to catch up on the Smoking Hot Nerds, it's on
do.
Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, and of course on our Facebook page. So like us and subscribe to us and all those things.
Eat our bologna, baby.
Just eat our
That's
bologna
our new punchline.
and find our foundlings. We would love it if you did all those things.
Fondle our foundlings.
So thank you for listening, and we'll see you probably next week with the first episode of season 2 of the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast. We'll see you